Welcome back to Vintage HLC Show and Tell. Today we're looking at the Angelus shape. Now this is a shape that was made from 1904 to 1920. It was made in both East Liverpool, Ohio and Newell, West Virginia. It's the first Homer Laughlin shape that was made for 15 years. And because of its longevity and because it was made in both East Liverpool and Newell, and it was made during the expansions of Plants 4 and Plant 5, it's relatively easy to find. It's much easier to find than American Beauty, Colonial, Seneca, or King Charles, the previous embossed shapes that we've looked at. In fact, I would say this is the oldest Homer Laughlin shape that is also easy to find. So the Angelus is characterized by three elements. Number one, it has a scalloped edge. And we can see it in the stack of plates. We can also see it on the lids of the casseroles and covered dishes. It has serpentine handles and finials. Pretty distinct. You're not going to confuse this shape with any other Homer Laughlin shape, or any other pottery for that matter. This is pretty unique. These serpentine handles and finials. We'll look at a finial. And it has lace embossing. And again, with all these fancy embossed shapes, I've said this before, the embossing is very difficult to see on these early shapes. This large picture, it does show up somewhat on mid-body, this fine lace detail. However, on other pieces, it can be nearly impossible to see. There were over 80 pieces in the assortment. Some pieces were picked up like the Newport salads, the, let's see, the Golden Gate egg cups, the Graham egg cups. There were 7 sizes of jugs. I believe there were 13 sizes of platters. So this is a pretty extensive assortment. Now, before we look at some shapes and patterns, I want to talk about the division that exists in the Angelus, because you have basically the American Beauty group and the Hudson group. And you can look at the treatment numbers. We have a catalog out. What is this? This is 1909. And when you have treatment numbers that are numerical, like these 9,000s, that's part of your American Beauty group. But once you get to the prefix system, because they go up to 9,999, and then we start the prefix system, AX1, AX2, and so forth, then you're in the Hudson group. So what that means is, if we look at some Angelus treatments that use campion, for example, 9701, 9702, and so forth, all of these come from American Beauty. So on American Beauty, that's treatment 701, 702, 703. On Colonial, it's going to have a 4 in front, so it's 4701, 4702. For Seneca, it's going to have a 6. For King Charles, it's an 8. And then for the Angelus, it's a 9. So most of these treatments are shared with that American Beauty group. Again, that's American Beauty, Colonial, Seneca, and King Charles, to a lesser extent, Golden Gate. But once you get to this prefix system, then you're dealing with treatments that are largely shared with the Hudson group. So that includes the Angelus, Hudson, Niagara, and Genesee. And I call it the Hudson group because Hudson is the dominant shape. So we'll look at some of these patterns. And so I may be saying, well, this comes from the Hudson group or the American Beauty group, and that's why, because of the treatments. So we'll start with this covered casserole. And this is treatment number AX77. So since we have this book out, we'll look that one up. AX77, very fine border rose arches. So this is a treatment that we will see again on both Hudson and Genesee. And then we have Chester Rose. We've seen this treatment before. We've seen it on Duchess Toiletware. I believe we've seen it on Colonial as well. It is treatment number 9941. So that's part of your American Beauty group. In the back with this blue underglaze print, that's pattern number 9983, one of many sizes of platters that was made for the Angelus. This is treatment number AX10. There were many gold stamps that were developed for the Angelus and Hudson. Look at the marking. We have the fleur-de-lis logo, Homer Laughlin, then the Angelus written out in cursive. May or may not have a date code because this was made again from 1904 to about 1920, so pieces without a date code come from 1904 to 1911. If there is a date code, then that'll be from 1912 to 1920. This is the only mark that was used on the Angelus. There's no eagle and lion, there's no circle mark, there's no signature mark, there's no wings up, wings down, and so forth. This is the only one you will find. Angelus cup and saucer with decals, gold stamp. The largest size jug, again there were 7 sizes. This is the 4s jug. Pretty impressive piece. This looks more like something you would see in a toilet set with a basin. And then we have some smaller sizes. In the back we've got a pair of 24s jugs, so this is your medium standard size. We'll look at this one because this has Royal Majolica. And this pattern was made up of a series of decals of pastoral scenes. We've got some gold stamps with it. And it generally has a double mark. So you will see the underglaze, the Angelus mark for the shape, and you will see a special gold stamp that is overglazed with the pattern, Royal Majolica. That was sold for Sears and Roebuck's 1908, 1909 or thereabouts. And then we have an underglaze print. So this would be part of your American Beauty group. So expect to find this particular treatment on shapes like American Beauty, Colonial, Seneca, and King Charles. Some more jugs. We've got this one with rose decals and gold stamps. And a smaller size. This would be like a 42's jug. This has the Royal Majolica with a different scene on it. Should have the same stamp. And a creamer. And we can look at this creamer because this goes back to what I was talking about, the Hudson group. This is, let's see, this is AX36. And we look at that in our book. AX36, it says small rose border on edge and scattered sprigs, gold edge, and fine lines. So you see our rose border and then the scattered sprigs. If we look at Hudson and we go to H36, we see the same thing. Small rose border on edge, scattered sprigs, and gold lines. So here we have a treatment that's being shared with Hudson. I believe it's also used on Genesee. In fact, I'm going to put this away for now. I mentioned before about the gold stamps that a lot of them were developed for the Angelus and Hudson. This is treatment, let's see, 9951. And this gold stamp was used by Homer Laughlin for many years. It goes all the way into the 1950s. This creamer that has the same gold stamp treatment is Republic, and it's dated 1953. So we have a pattern that's used for over 50 years. So I would argue that this is probably the longest running gold stamp pattern that Homer Laughlin used. In the back we have one of the largest size platters, or dishes as they were called back then, for the Angelus. It's got this green luster with this decal and gold stamp. I don't know if you can see the gold stamp on the verge. And then Chester Rose on a covered dish. This is treatment number 9943. We've seen this pattern before on King Charles. It was also used on Laughlin Art China. This is one of the best patterns that Homer Laughlin did in my opinion. Try to zoom in, you can see the blue border going on with all these roses and the gold stamps, and this elaborate gold tracings going on with the handle. Christmas decal, we see this on the Angelus and Hudson, several other shapes. So here it is with gold stamps. And it is pattern number 9987. So it's a departure from the underglaze print that we saw with Seneca that was used on several other shapes as well. Then we have a covered sugar bowl with some rose decals. Again, you see those distinct serpentine handles and finials and the scallop foot as well. Gravy boat with the clover decals. This was used on Hudson and Genesee, and maybe even Niagara. When we get to those shapes, we will look at all these shared treatments some more. 36's bowl with a thorny rose decal. Again, there's our Angelus marking. And a couple bakers. There were multiple sizes of bakers. Here's the smallest size. Undecorated blank. And then a couple, here's one with some swag decals and some gold stamps. And another piece of Royal Majolica with a different scene, gold stamps. And it says the Angelus. and Royal Majolica. I think there were 13 sizes of platters. I'm pretty sure there were, and we've got the smallest size platters here with these unusual tavern decals and these luster trims. The pickles. This is Chester Rose, one with gold stamps, and yet again Royal Majolica with another scene. Covered butter, we've already seen this when I did the covered butter dish video. And some bone dishes, carnations, decals and gold stamps, and more decals with gold stamps. All these bone dishes will be marked. Sometimes, all the scalloping and embossing detail should be there, but if it's not, you can always look at the marking. There's some more of that lace embossing I was talking about. And there were 3 sizes of salad nappies. I think we've seen all these before, but I wanted to put them all out together so you could see the different sizes. This one's White Pets. So you have the Angelus, which is being made at the same time as Laughlin Art China. So there's a lot of overlap between Art China and Decorated Specialties with them picking up Angelus pieces. So we see the Angelus underglaze mark, we see White Pets, which is the pattern name, and the gold stamp for Laughlin Art China. Here's the medium-sized salad nappy with the rose decal. We've seen this on Hudson fruit plates. We've got blended tints and gold stamps. The largest size salad nappy. Here we have a lady with rose in the hair, blended tints, gold tracings. And this is a regular Angelus nappy. Again with our scallop rim. We have our rose decal again with these blended tints, and I believe these are grapes, the gold stamp used here. Should be marked the Angelus. It is. It's a pretty good marking on that one. This dates to about 1910. So I'll put these aside and we'll look at some plates. One thing about the Angelus, and this is true for all these fancy embossed shapes of this time period, any dinnerware you're dealing with prior to 1920, it's very difficult to find a full set. For example, like 4 plates, 4 cups, 4 saucers. Because a lot of that ware was heavily used, a lot of it crazed, a lot of it discolored. So what we find instead are all these service pieces like casseroles and creamers and jugs. And when it comes to these bowls and plates, it's mainly souvenir pieces or specialty pieces. And that's what we're going to see here. These are all the Angelus plates I have, and only one of them actually comes from dinnerware. So we have some advertising pieces. This one is from Kentucky. Uses some strawberry decals and gold stipple. Another one, this one comes from a store in, what is that, Kansas. This was picked up for a child set. So this would have used a little milk pitcher and a cereal bowl from Decorated Specialties. So we see all these little nursery rhymes around the rim. Another specialty piece, the little cherubs with this little invitation and gold stamps. And sometimes you get these odd combinations, like you have these kids eating their cereal or porridge, and then you've got these Christmas holly blossom decals, and you've got gold stamps. So you get these odd combinations of these little specialty pieces. We've seen this treatment before in the colonial shape. Here it is on the Angelus with the sunbonnet girls with the roses and gold stamps. Angelus being picked up and used in current. This is our version with the gold trim. The Angelus, and then the gold Laughlin Art China marking. This one comes from a line of dinnerware. This is the only plate I have that comes from dinnerware. So this is a gold stamp. This is treatment 9991. This was used for many years as well, just like the other gold stamp we just looked at on that covered dish. This was used on Republic and Hudson and many other shapes. Another specialty piece, this is a Laughlin Beauty. We've got this maroon border with this gold stamp. Mark the Angelus. Souvenir plate, this one from Walnut Port, Pennsylvania, with this lady in gold stamping. This one you can pretty much see the lace embossing on this one rather nicely. Cherries decal, I've got a little page on the website on this decal and its multiple uses. This looks like gold stipple, but it's not. It's actually gold stamped to made to look like gold stipple. I don't know why they just didn't do gold stipple, but they did a gold stamp in this case. Thorny rose decal with gold stamps. This actually comes from dinnerware. This is not a specialty piece. This is a rather odd underglaze print with these little turkeys in the tree in the moonlight. Nice little details going on the border. A little bit of gold tracing. This is, okay, this is dinnerware too. This is 9983. We saw this on the platter before. And this with the festoon border, we've seen this treatment on the King Charles shape already. Here it is on the Angelus. But instead of just being dinnerware, they're specialty pieces because we have this center decal. So we've got pears in this case, apples, and grapes. So I think that's going to be all for American Beauty, for now at least. We'll probably revisit this shape. Again, this is very easy to find. If you don't already collect this, you should have no problem at all finding pieces of American Beauty. Though, again, it's going to be service pieces and specialty pieces. Finding a full set of dinnerware for the Angelus or any of those early fancy embossed shapes is going to be rather difficult, simply because it was heavily used, it was damaged, it was discolored, and usually discarded. So that's going to be it for now.